Okay, I'll give you 3. Here I go. Yeah. Hi, this is Elena Passarello, and you are listening to In the Can, which is my favorite podcast. It's also the only podcast I've ever listened to. Hi, this is Elena Passarello.
Glorious.
Okay, I'll do another one. Hi, this is Elena Passarello, and you're listening to In the Can. Hi, this is Elena Passarello, and this is my cat, Columbo. Oh, I was trying to get my cat to meow, but he wouldn't do it. Never mind. All right, you're listening to In the Can. Maybe you don't do that one.
In the Can, a podcast about movies, starring Tom and Ygal.
Welcome back to the In the Can podcast, episode 33, your source for movie news and fantastic guests. And I'm so glad that we're back to our guest format this week, Ygal. We have an unbelievable guest, Elena Passarello. She's a writer, an essayist, an actor, a performer. She won a shouting contest in 2011. She's really quite the Renaissance woman and was a great interview.
Yeah, indeed she was. And, it was really cool that we got a chance to talk to her because, she's been in movies. She didn't know it before we talked to her, but we dug up, a movie she had acted in 8 years ago called Dumpster. It was a very independent film. Exactly. A very independent film out of Pittsburgh. It was really interesting that we saw that. We saw some of her old work. And, we got to talk to her about, Oscar nominees. And, she's a professor at Oregon State University. She teaches writing. She's an essayist, like you said. And her book, Let Me Clear My Throat, has been out for about a year and is really a really interesting book. So she's just really interesting and knowledgeable. And that book has a lot of stuff about movies and movie related sounds and things like that. So, we thought she'd be the perfect person to talk to. And I believe we were proven correct.
I'm sure it's something that you're going to enjoy. Here is our interview with Elena Passarello. Once again, we're very happy to have with us Elena Passarello, writer, actress, essayist. Elena, thanks for doing the show so much. It's really a pleasure to have you on.
Oh, I'm super stoked to be here. Thank you for having me.
So nice. So let me start off with a kind of facetious question, but it's something I want to ask you. How sick are you of people calling you and leaving you voicemails trying to out-scream you?
I'm all right. I'm not too sick of that. I have to say though that, and I'm a little over kind of being in quiet places like libraries or places where I'll give a reading or a party and they'll be like, do the Stella Scream, and then they'll make like a big circle around me and they'll be like, okay, do it now. I'm a little tired of that, but
oh jeez, that would be just downright unpleasant. I would not like that.
But I do like, ever since the book came out, people have been emailing me screams, like other screams from movies and stuff. Sometimes they won't even introduce themselves. They'll just send me a link to a scream. And I kind of love that. I think that's kind of great.
So you've got a scream collection going? That's like that's a little serial killery, but
It is. Yeah, I've got my closet of screams.
That's okay. We like it.
And of course, the book you're referring to is your new book of essays, Let Me Clear My Throat. And it's doing very well. I've read some of it. Ygal saw you perform some of it, apparently in person, and the reviews are great of it. It talks about, it's this group of pop culture essays talking about famous pop culture screams, singing, and kind of this third part of mystery voices and things like that. How long did it take you to put all this together?
All told, about 5 years. I started writing it in grad school and then kind of plodded through until the end, which was about 5 years later.
Are you tired of people asking you about it?
No, not at all. I'm still pretty shocked that anyone is even remotely interested, honestly. That's the thing about when you spend 5 years on a project, you kind of it ends up being this kind of mental clubhouse where you retreat day after day, and then all of a sudden the rest of the world knows about it, and you're just like, how did you guys get into my head? It's pretty shocking and kind of exciting. So I'm just happy that people know about it and that they're not, they don't know about it in some kind of a way that would get me in trouble or something. They happily know about it. I'm very pleased about that.
Well, it's got a lot of really accessible and really like easily enjoyable kind of ideas, like bringing together Howard Dean and from the
Robert Plant.
Robert Plant together in the one essay. Those things they make the whole concept really accessible, I think, to just an open audience. I think everybody can sort of be like, well, that sounds amazing, no matter what it is.
Oh, thank you so much. I want it to be kind of like a party where a whole bunch of people are just thinking about their favorite movies and their favorite songs and their favorite weird YouTube clips, and everyone's kind of trying to like one up each other with awesome shit. And then and so I think the thing that's so exciting about that's what's so great at getting emailed these screams is like I think about Robert Plant and then I think about Howard Dean and then I write the essay, and I love the idea that the book comes out and then somebody else gets back in touch with me with their favorite rock singer / political screamer. I don't know how many more political screamers there are other than Howard Dean, but you know what I mean? Like, I love this sort of, the potential for conversation that these kinds of essays allow, right?
Yeah, I feel like there's a great party actual board game hidden in there somewhere. Like you draw an essay and then the teams have to discuss it in some sort of debate format. I feel like it's like,
yeah,
or
Cards
what
Against
famous
Humanity
scream am I
means
trying
something.
to replicate right now, kind of thing.
Yeah, and you call it I scream, you scream.
Exactly. We're gonna be rich. That's it. Now, one of the essays you wrote about is about the Wilhelm scream. And are there any other ones that are, big movie related sounds?
Well, I hope other ones in the book.
Well, in the book and otherwise, if you've written some other essays about movie sounds.
Well, I definitely looked at a lot of movie sounds to figure out, which ones I wanted to talk about. There's the Stella Scream is in the book, and Marlon Brando's Stella Scream from A Streetcar Named Desire, and it's been replicated in lots of other movies and TV shows. There's this really great movie called, I've never been able to talk about this, and I've never done a movie podcast, so I'm really glad to be talking to you guys. Have you guys ever seen the early Brian De Palma movie, Blowout?
With Travolta? That's a great movie. That is a movie all about sound. He's a sound, capturer.
Yeah, totally. And it's all about him, and the whole plot gets rolling because he's looking for the perfect movie scream. Isn't it? Oh, no. It opens with, like, a terrible, porny-looking horror movie, and then the woman that they've hired to play the topless shower murder victim screams, and it sounds terrible.
Yeah.
And so then he goes and is trying to find somebody to loop in the scream, but then he's looking for something else, and then he hears the blowout. Like, he's just, walking around with his John Travolta mic. I love that movie. I love that movie.
It's a really underrated movie, especially for De Palma. It's really kind of understated for all of his other flicks. It's like the opposite of Scarface.
Yeah, right? Yeah, but it's still got all of that kind of great, popped collar De Palma action. I love that movie. I love Dressed to Kill, and I love Body Double. Body Double is sort of when he... Well, I don't know what Body Double is. He started to get... sometimes geniuses like that, phase in and out of relevance, and he's been so far out of relevance for so long, it's hard to... But sometimes he, comes back, and I think we've argued on this very show before that Snake Eyes is, a underrated classic. It's bad, but it's sort of excellent. But
I wouldn't go that far.
You know what? I would agree with you. Snake Eyes is really interesting.
It has a lot of interesting concepts, and it does feature Nicolas Cage it's kind of borderline restrained Cage, but he's still got some flashes of crazy. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's great. But you know who I think the best movie screamer of all time is Fay Wray.
I was just gonna say that. She's on my list.
So early, one of the first ones, and she just has essentially kicked including, I love Adrienne Barbeau's scream as well, but in The Fog and all of those movies.
Creepshow. Oh God, man, I'm a big Adrienne Barbeau. We're big John Carpenter fans around here, so.
Oh, sweet.
So we talk a lot of Adrienne Barbeau.
There must have been so many movie screams that probably, you must have had so much content for the book that you probably didn't make it over the hump, was on the bubble maybe you wanted to use but couldn't. And as I was reading your book, I was like, wow, what are some of my favorite movie screams? And one of the ones I came up with was Fay Wray. Another one is Shatner in Star Trek II with Khan.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a fantastic scream. I don't think people, I guess they do talk about it all the time, but one of the best.
You're right. That didn't make it. I didn't even ever think of that in all that time, but that is a killer sound.
It's a killer sound.
It's also, an iconic shout. You know, the one I thought of instantly is the John Turturro screams in Miller's Crossing. If you remember when he's being dragged out, if you've seen that, when he's being dragged out in the forest to get killed, and he's like begging for his life. Yeah, and he's screaming. Those screams are so bone chilling to me. There's something about that I don't know.
When a man's voice goes up into his like falsetto register, or in his throat, it's not really a falsetto when you're screaming, but like up into the sort of girly part of the scream. That's gold. Like when people can make that happen.
Indeed,
Great.
John Turturro is very good at that. That's his bread and butter.
Yeah, he does it in Oh Brother Where Art Thou too, right?
Yeah, he does exactly. But I think without further ado, we would like to talk about another movie. And I'm gonna shift the conversation. This is a left turn for the conversation because we are, after all, on a clock. So I don't want to spend too much time getting all De Palma. We wanted to talk about a movie that you may have heard of called Dumpster.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
That we saw.
And it was surprisingly easy to get a hold of.
Yeah, it sure was. We watched Dumpster. So for our listeners, Dumpster is the 2005 film that Elena Passarello starred in, or co-starred in, as Serena. This is a movie made in Pittsburgh, which is right in our backyard. There's sort of our, it's like, it's Mordor to us. We're Clevelanders, so Pittsburgh's sort of like Mordor. But, so I got in contact with Jim Daniels, the writer, and he sent us a copy of Dumpster, and we watched it. And, we wanted to talk to you about it and pick your brain about it because it was really interesting.
Okay.
And the first thing that I wanted to say, Tom, I don't know, can I start off with,
please start.
Reflection?
Please start.
I'm going to go ahead.
I know we both have so many questions.
So many questions to ask. One was this filmed on Carnegie Mellon campus?
Yes, part of it was, and then the parts in the house were filmed on an Oscar night, if I remember correctly, because I really wanted to nail all my takes quickly so I could go home and watch the Oscars.
How appropriate.
I know, apropos.
And so my question is, how did David Conrad get in the mixer? Because, I mean, I recognized him instantly. I was like watching this movie, I was like, wait a second, I've seen this guy in like a million different things.
That's right. Conrad is a native, diehard Pittsburgher. Still spends most of his time in Pittsburgh. He graduated from, he went to a private school outside of Pittsburgh, but he grew up in Swissvale, PA, which is kind of close to Squirrel Hill, if you know where that is.
Yeah, I was born in Squirrel Hill, so I do know where it is.
There you go.
Wow.
So right across the highway from Squirrel Hill is his stomping grounds, and he's like, I consider him still a Pittsburgh resident, even though he's in LA. He's actually a really good friend of mine, and most of the people that are in that movie were all pretty tight with each other. That crazy kid, the guy with the blue eyes, Alexei, who at one who has like a little monologue, kind of a heavyset guy with blue eyes, is this crazy. Yeah. He's this crazy Pittsburgh performance artist, and Patrick Jordan is the guy who was standing on his head. And he's
the two frat brothers.
Yeah, he's in a whole bunch of shit now. He was in the Batman, The Dark Knight Rises. He was in She's Out of My League. He was in The Mysteries of Pittsburgh. Basically, every movie that's filmed in Pittsburgh, he plays somebody's asshole boyfriend or an asshole cop.
Well, he's certainly got.
That sounds like somebody I want to talk to right there.
Well, you should, and I'm sure he's seen everything. So you should.
Here's what I need. I need to get a copy of the L.A. Confidential TV movie that David Conrad was in, because L.A. Confidential is like one of my favorite movies, and there was an attempt at a TV show that didn't last. I don't think it was picked up. They filmed a pilot with Kiefer Sutherland in Kevin Spacey's part and David Conrad playing Guy Pearce's part.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That sounds fantastic.
Exactly. I would love to see that. So if you ever let David, next time you like exchange Christmas cards with David Conrad, tell him that A, we want him on the show, and B, we would like to see the LA Confidential pilot that didn't get picked up.
I'm texting him right now. Send me. I don't know if you guys have any friends that are like on TV or in movies, but there's nothing funnier when somebody that you like have a whole bunch of beers with or whatever is like shirtless in a some kind of like commercial, like lifting weights or something, or like my friend Patrick is playing like these asshole boyfriends. I'm a peripheral member of the film community, but there's nothing better. It just makes you laugh until you die. Like we love it.
Unfortunately, you're our only friend who's on screen. That's the thing. We don't. Everybody else is behind the camera, so. We get to make fun of them when they make something terrible, but that's it.
Well, I'm sure that you'll be surprised to know that I did my own hair and makeup for that movie.
Well, you did a bang-up job. We thought so.
Shut up.
Let's talk about the movie real quick. So, how did you get involved with that? Were you studying at Carnegie Mellon at the time?
No, I was old.
Or at Pitt?
I went to Pitt, and then about by that time I was long graduated, and I was just like a local theater hump. I did a lot of theater. That's how I met David and Alexi and Patrick, and so Jim Daniels, who's a really cool poet. Was I think just like looking for actors around town, and I think that's how we got to know each other. I had interviewed him before for a writing thing that I had done, so I think they just were like, she'll do it. They gave me the gig. I was kind of the girl. I was an actor in the East Coast for about 10 years, and I was the girl who would do the thing that made no sense. Like it's like at one point somebody was like, "Would you like to wear like an 8-foot puppet costume made entirely of dryer lint?" And I'd be like, "Yes."
Well, that's a no-brainer.
Where can I get a DVD of that?
I don't know. Hopefully those have all been burned, But and then so anyway, yeah, that's how I got the gig, and I think it's really fun that a movie was written by a poet. Like the two genres, just you can't really imagine them 100%, jiving. So I think that's one of the things that makes that movie so fun, is that it's got like a poet's sense of narrative and plotting and style,
And it also takes some poetic license with age believability, because David Conrad's like a 40-year-old dude. That was the one I was like, this guy does not look like he has been in college since like the 70s.
Yeah. And the other guy too was
well, right. I mean, he was playing a working guy, so that was believable casting. And I thought all three of you guys were really good in it. And,
thank you.
And particularly David Conrad and the gentleman who played the garbage man. Now I feel bad that I didn't recall his name instantly. That's like sort of a meta subplot of the movie. Like I remember the good-looking frat boy, but I don't remember.
That's Jeffrey Carpenter.
Jeffrey Carpenter.
Yeah, he runs a great theater company in Pittsburgh, and he actually introduced me to the man that has been my partner for 11 years. So, and then I had to do all that kissing on him in that movie.
Oh, so awkward.
Like his best boy, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go kiss this guy. But it was really fun, actually. It was kind of strange, and I don't know. I highly recommend kissing strangers on camera. If you guys ever get a chance to do it, I say make it happen.
I'm hard-pressed to believe that this was your only opportunity to get in front of a camera like this. Is there any other movies that we maybe don't know about that you're in?
No comment. No, I'm just kidding. I have to tell you, I don't do that much. I certainly don't do film anymore, and I do just a little bit of theater because I teach, right? And I was teaching in Michigan in about 2008, and I was teaching business writing, and I had my students do these presentations, and I had this just real shit-eating grin group of guys, and I think they wrote Jim Daniels too, and they found the video, and in the middle of the presentation, they're like, okay, here's our visual component for our presentation that we're doing, and they showed a scene from the film. I forget how they wound it in.
Glorious.
It was right before the scene. It wasn't of me, right? So it was of Jeff and Dave, and then it was right before the moment where I walk in a bathrobe, and so I'm sitting there in like my business casual clothes trying to teach the youth of America, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm gonna come on and stay on this camera in a bathrobe in front of all these 19-year-olds, and then they just turned the camera off right before then, and they were like, this is an example of friendship, talking about the friendship between the two guys, right? And so it was out of nowhere, and I nearly like puked on these.
Lost your shit, I would imagine.
It was terrifying. But yeah, other than that, I did a lot of commercial stuff, like commercials, especially around Pittsburgh. I think you might, or one would have seen me kind of like walking around in front of Buicks being like, on sale now, after Christmas sale. I did a lot of that shit, but mostly theater and voiceover. Very, very little camera.
I'm afraid we didn't get those Buick commercials in Cleveland. We don't shop at Pittsburgh-owned car dealerships. So.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You guys got to go. You have to have your Cleveland cars.
Exactly. We have very strong moral guidelines on this. But so you haven't acted in any movies since, and you acted theater. When's the last time you were on stage?
Not since last January. I went back to Pittsburgh and I did a show with the guy that stands on his head. Patrick Jordan has one of the best theater companies in the country right now. They're called Bare Bones Productions, and I did a show with him, and it was awesome. It was great.
So one last thing that I have to do just to wrap up our whole conversation before we get to some of these Oscar-nominated films, and that is that, true or false, the name of your book came from the DJ Cool single?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Because I heard you said that. I heard that you had said that, and I wasn't exactly sure. I thought, hey, maybe she's trolling us. I'm not really sure. But as a man of your generation, I remember loving that song and getting hella down to it.
You have to look at the video now in 2014, Tom, because it makes hip-hop, especially like hip-hop sexuality, look so adorable. Like, like the club girls in that video they're supposed to be kind of nasty, they're wearing like little half shirts and skirts and like flat shoes, and they have on like a respectable amount of makeup, and it's just so charmingly. I remember thinking that it was really like super hip and like really sexy, but now it just looks like.
That's the thing. It was so not hard then. It's the same as looking at like Elvis as a rebel. You know what I mean? You see like a picture of Elvis in a leather jacket. You're like, there was a time when people found this guy to be scary, to like defend their daughters from this guy. Yeah. And then you think about how like evil music is now. Yeah. And you look at these guys. You're like, wow. DJ Cool, you were pretty soft, dude.
Yeah, or like when you watch I Dream of Jeannie, and people thought her costume was so scandalous, and now 3-year-olds wear it.
Oh, exactly.
Whatever. Yeah. But, Let Me Clear My Throat is, people who don't know the DJ Cool song, like vocal people, like opera singers, think that the title is, somebody like reviewed it for some opera news publication, and, you're really not supposed to clear your throat when you sing. Like if you, like it messes with your vocal cords. So they're very kind of put off by the title of the book.
Wow. So did you get like raked over the coals by the vocal community? Or like, well, she's probably not legit if she thinks you can clear your throat before
Exactly. They were like, I don't know how anyone could write a book about the human voice titled by something that is so harmful to the instruments or something like that.
Oh, jeez.
I just want to be like, let's get in the time machine and I'll take you back to 1995 and you can hear exactly what I'm referencing. Dun, 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 right? The DJ
Bunch of divas. That's
Everybody likes to have an opinion. Everyone likes to have an opinion. When you put out a book, you can't put it in. What can I tell you?
They're right, though. You really shouldn't do that. So they're right. It's just
I told you, Tom. I told you. Every day before the show, he clears his throat a bunch, then he drinks a big thing of milk, and then he smokes a cigar. And I'm like, dude, that is not the way to prepare your voice to go on the air.
They used to say that smoking cigarettes was good for the vocal cords, that it relaxed them.
It used to relax me.
Oh, yeah, me too. I miss it so much.
Jean-Marc Vallée film with Matthew McConaughey and Jennifer Garner and Jared Leto and Griffin Dunn and Steve Zahn and a bunch of other odd character parts. But what did you guys think of this movie?
I thought about as much of it as the Academy did, and that's really liked it. This picture has like 6 or 7 Oscar nominations. It's up for Best Picture, Best Actor in a Leading Role, Best Supporting Actor, Best Original Writing, Best Film Editing, and Best Hair and Makeup. So clearly, the who's who of the Hollywood community really enjoyed it, and I did as well. I thought the acting was just out of sight in this movie.
Yeah, what did you think, Elena?
I thought the performances were the strong suit of the movie. I thought Leto was really good, and I thought McConaughey, I mean, he's just on fire right now.
Yeah, he really is.
Yeah.
We said it last week. We were wondering why people don't quite take him quite as seriously as they do, like maybe even a Brad Pitt type or something. But
Yeah.
But he's really good. He really deserves more credit than he gets, and he put his back into this one. He was good in that.
It's a fairly recent change, right? Like, he was playing, like, Kate Hudson's eternal boyfriend for, like, 10 years, and now then he did Mud, he did Killer Joe.
I loved Killer Joe. Oh,
Yeah.
God, I loved Killer Joe.
Terrifying film. And now
man.
with these two and Bernie, I love the idea that somebody who used to be a heartthrob can actually turn himself into a character actor, like Brad Pitt did. I just think that's a fantastic part of the Hollywood story. I wish it was more possible for women, but I love that it's happening with McConaughey.
Yeah, he's really, I mean, just on an insane streak right now. He was amazing in Wolf of Wall Street. He was amazing in this. He's amazing on True Detective, which is like my favorite new show. He's just, I don't know if you had a chance to watch it. It's just dynamite.
It's
really
good.
Yeah, it's really
cool.
good.
And, really, Leto is kind of the same trajectory. Like, Leto hadn't made a movie in, like, 6 years, right? He was busy in that Mohawk band that he's in or whatever. But, like, he was sort of just playing, I mean, he did Requiem for a Dream and Fight Club, but I think he was just kind of turning down, like, Jordan Catalano 2 Electric Boogaloo roles, and they found this for him. And he just dove in, man. Like, he really did. I know a lot of people are sort of a little upset that they didn't cast a trans actor in the part, but I really appreciated how gentle and interesting he was.
He really did fall off the map quite a bit. I mean, to me, he'll always be Jordan Catalano. I was right in that age range to be watching My So-Called Life and being just like, these people's lives are just what I hope high school is going to be like.
And isn't it set in Cleveland too? So
it's not set in Cleveland.
I think it is.
No way. How did I don't think it was set in Cleveland.
If it is, my mind just got blown up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not, because I think that would have been almost too much for us to handle. But
I'm glad the boys like that.
Well, that's the thing. My brother and I were really into some odd movies. We were not like most young lads. We watched My So-Called Life and 90210 pretty intently. So yeah, it was weird.
Has it affected your ability to talk to the female gender? Are you a better communicator because of it?
Well, I feel like I have a better sense of what haircut women will like. I know when to activate sideburns and when not to activate sideburns.
He's definitely mastered the pensive glance across the room.
Oh, yes,
He's definitely got that in his back pocket.
Yes, I have. I learned how to deploy a strategic squint.
Oh, yeah.
That's something Dylan was able to do with maximum efficiency. He would just deploy a squint.
Luke Perry.
Yeah, right.
Oh, come back to us.
Oh, Luke Perry. The thing is, I was like a 10-year-old watching a show where he was supposed to be like a 16-year-old. So my question is, why am I 31 and he's like 64? That's what I don't get. But yeah, I did grow up watching an awful lot of these shows. But yeah, that said, Jared Leto he's really good. I mean, he's only been in like 5 movies in the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. Which is pretty weird for a guy as popular as he is. It's pretty weird, but he was really good in this. But my question is, what do you think about the story and what was happening with the story style, the way they kind of told it from the point of view of Matthew McConaughey trying to maximize his time left? Mm-hmm. I thought it was really interesting because at the same time, I mean, he wasn't really, the part where he turns the one dude down for not having enough money. And when you think about the fact that he sort of got rich off all these guys, it's kind of weird. It kind of made me wonder. It kind of felt a little weird, I thought.
That he was kind of profiting. That it was like,
yeah, exactly. I mean, the way they frame the story as this like violent struggle to live. And I like that. At first, like, when it was like day 1, day 2, and you're like, wow, he's got like, they're saying he could die like at any moment. Like, they don't give him 30 days. Mm-hmm. And then when he starts to last, you're like, wow, he's not really violently struggling to live anymore. At this point, he's now like violently struggling to be a small businessman.
Yeah.
Really, you think you can make that jump via a movie like this? That he
Well,
wasn't...
exactly. I don't want to, I don't want to take too much about the truth. So I'm not judging the guy. I'm just saying, like, it sort of was like a weird thing that I don't feel. I don't know. I don't feel it was like adequately reflected in. I think movies like this always 10 times out of 10 would interest me more if they devoted more time to some of those uncomfortable questions. Like, that's a serious question to investigate about this. Like, was this guy maybe sort of a little bit of a jerk? Like, after he saved himself, he was like, okay, now I'm going to absolutely soak these people for AIDS medication.
Well, it was the whole topic was something I had very little knowledge of prior to going into the movie. I was especially interested in the conflict that arose between, him and the FDA.
Yeah.
And whether or not there's a lot of talk in it about various drugs and supplements, peptide T and AZT and a bunch of other things that these guys were taking back during that time frame that the FDA, I guess they were seeing market improvement in their conditions for, but the FDA wouldn't approve it. All those issues are things that I'm much more interested in now, and this movie definitely spurred me to learn more about it. So at the very least, I learned something from this film.
Yeah, I thought that. Do you ever do this where you go into a movie and you really you get a picture in your mind of what you really hope the movie is not? Like,
yes.
With sports,
expectations are brought up on this podcast all the time.
I just don't like when you go in for a sports movie and you're just like, please don't make this miracle again. Or you go into a cartoon and you're like, please don't have something where, the little girl falls asleep and dreams of princess, whatever it is. Like, I could see the Hollywood version of this story when I walked into the theater, sort of louder and with more strings and with more thinking faces and looking out at the ocean, and the thing that I liked so much about this movie is how many times it avoided the sort of anti-hero becomes the hero, the rise of altruism, the sort of gloss that Hollywood would put on this kind of a story. I don't think it did it the whole way through, but I do think that it was surprising and kind of twisted. Like, Ygal, you were talking about this kind of conflict that was kind of half expressed, and I think that that's part of the anti-Hollywood twisting of the framework of the piece, which I thought was kind of great.
I did like that too, and I mean, I think the biggest one right off the bat was, I think most people who didn't know the true story didn't know what this was about, and this, I think, was something that they were probably trying to expose. I think most people probably assumed that the main character that they saw on the cover of the movie, this very gaunt, sick Matthew McConaughey, I don't think anybody assumed he was like a incredibly heterosexual cowboy who was, a homophobe and stuff. I think people had an image in their mind of he was like a disco guy or something else.
Right. And
so
the marketing for this film isn't dispelling that either.
Right,
if you've
exactly.
Seen any
they
of the
play
marketing.
it up. I mean, then they show you, and then in the thing, you're like, Jared Leto is playing, a transsexual, and so all these things, and so you're thinking, well, okay, Matthew McConaughey is playing, I mean, maybe he's homosexual or maybe he's not, but he's probably not, a virulent homophobe and this cowboy, this archetype of male, of the anti-AIDS, image that we had in that time. So, yeah, I think the movie, it did this interesting thing where it did what you're saying, where it kind of went against your expectations, but I thought it did it in some ways in a superficial way with that. And that's why I thought that this element with him, being a profiteer was an interesting angle that I would have just liked to see explored more.
Yeah, me too. I hear you there. What else is this guy? I know this guy's making the Wild movie, the Cheryl Strayed memoir movie, but has he made anything else, the director?
Jean-Marc Vallée is actually, he's been around for a long time. He made a movie called Crazy, a French movie that was very popular, a comedy. And I think this is his first American movie.
Wow, okay.
So,
yeah, most of his other releases were in Europe. So
yeah, exactly. But, yeah, I mean, I think he was really good. Oh, he made The Young Victoria, that movie from 2009 with Emily Blunt.
Oh, yeah.
And Paul Bettany. So he's not that new. He's been around.
That was a good movie.
I actually didn't see that one, but I do love Jim Broadbent. I will see anything with him.
Absolutely.
And we actually just saw we both saw. We haven't had a chance to talk about it yet because we're sort of waiting because it doesn't come out till April in the United States. But Filth, this new adaptation of Irvin Welsh with James McAvoy and Jim Broadbent is freaking amazing. It was one of my favorite movies of 2013, but it's not out here in the United States till April. But when you get a chance, you should see it. It's amazing.
I'm gonna run. That sounds great.
It's really dark, but it's really good.
So here's a question to wrap this up. Do either of you guys think that either of these actors can bring home the Oscar from these performances?
It seems like.
I think.
Go ahead, Ygal.
I'm sorry. I that's very rude because you're the guest.
No,
you should really go
come
first.
on.
But
I want to piggyback off
and,
what you say, so you go first.
I think it's one of those years where it's an insanely difficult choice. The one that comes to mind is who was up against Kevin Spacey the year he won for American Beauty.
Oh, yeah.
There was somebody else that year that everyone was like, if there's any god on the planet, this guy will win. But then Kevin Spacey did American Beauty and everyone was like, okay, well, we accept that he won, but whoever he was up against was... So this happens from time to time. This is one of those years, I think, with Chiwetel Ejiofor in 12 Years a Slave and Matthew McConaughey in Dallas Buyers Club. I think there's going to be a strong inclination to give it to Ejiofor, even though I think a lot of people think Matthew McConaughey deserves it. I sort of, after seeing this, I think Matthew McConaughey deserves it. I think he should really get the award.
I think that he's much more likely to win for leading than Leto is to win for supporting.
You do?
I think Michael Fassbender's performance in 12 Years a Slave
is unbeatable.
Is going to beat Jared Leto. And although I love Jared Leto's performance, I feel like he wasn't given quite enough to do in the movie to win the Oscar.
He didn't have enough screen time to power past Michael Fassbender in 12 Years a Slave. Or also, honestly, as much as I did like Jared Leto, I would say for me, he's bringing up the rear in this entire category. You
would put him behind Jonah Hill.
I would put him behind Jonah Hill in Wolf of Wall Street. I would put him behind Brad Cooper in American Hustle. And I'll tell you, I would definitely put him behind Barkhad Abdi in Captain Phillips. I think he is I think he's running right behind Michael Fassbender. I don't know if you guys have seen that yet.
No.
But he is absolutely just amazing in that movie. Barkhad Abdi really deserves a strong look, but I don't think anybody's going to threaten Fassbender for Best Supporting Actor.
See, that's my category. I think this is going to be the most exciting category for the Oscars then, because I really want Jonah Hill to win that thing. He set the pace of that movie. He let everybody else, including DiCaprio, he let them know it's okay to make one of these sprawling 21st century comedies. I mean, he was the metronome of that film. I'm so team him, and I know it's not as sort of what's it called, bravura a turn as like what Fassbender was doing or what it sounds like the Captain Phillips gentleman is doing, but I got to get behind a comedy actor that can pace a movie the way that he did. It's a spectacular.
We're huge fans of his. Around here. I would have no problem with him winning, but yeah, he's running third for me right now. But he was really good. I definitely agree that he was my favorite part of Wolf of Wall Street, and he was incredibly strong. But
yeah,
that's I think that let's wrap it up on Dallas Buyers Club.
Okay.
I think what do you think about its chances as Best Picture is the question.
Ooh. I think I don't think they're that good. It's a great year between American Hustle, Gravity, Her, and 12 Years a Slave and Wolf of Wall Street. I don't see it taking down all those other films.
Yeah.
But darn, it was a really good film, and it certainly deserves the nomination. I don't have any arguments with the nomination, but in 2013, gosh, it's going to be real tough to beat all these other high caliber films.
Word.
Let me ask you, what do you think about Dallas Buyers Club? And you're the person we want to ask on this because you are a professor of nonfiction writing. So, what do you think about Dallas Buyers Club's chances in the Best Writing Original Screenplay category?
Who are they nominated with? What's the
the competitors are Blue Jasmine, American Hustle, Her, and Nebraska.
Oh wow, that's such a good category.
It really is. We were big fans of Her and Blue Jasmine, and I absolutely loved American Hustle. I still haven't seen Nebraska.
Yeah, Nebraska, the writing is really special. And I would not put Dallas Buyers Club among the top of that particular list. But structurally, I think it's the way that they've put it together makes it really interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'd have to go Blue Jasmine for the most interesting writing, and because it's a literary allusion, and all of that stuff. I think that I would go Blue Jasmine. What do you think?
I was actually leaning towards American Hustle. I actually thought American Hustle had just a perfect screenplay. Now, the thing that going against American Hustle, my book, is that they had to really mangle truth and what really happened to get there.
Yeah.
But I thought that, and that takes away from me a lot, because I like true stories. That's the thing. Dallas Buyers Club and American Hustle are both true stories.
But what do you think about
roughly.
the fact that David O. Russell and all of the actors, when they get interviewed about American Hustle, they talk about all the ad-libbing that they did? So can you get an award for best screenplay when you have so much open content?
That's a good question. I think so. I think when the movie is structured so well that it can survive things like that, I think it is a well put together frame, and I think for that alone it deserves recognition. I thought American Hustle was just a supremely crafted film. I think if nothing else, David O. Russell's still my top choice for best director. Yeah. I think he's an insanely talented guy, and so I like I liked American Hustle's screenplay quite a bit, but that's interesting. Tom, what did you think?
I don't think it has very much chance for screenplay, unfortunately.
Yeah,
She picked Blue Jasmine. What did you think?
I personally would pick her. And obviously we talked about it in prior episodes.
I heard this in the last episode. You guys love the her. Both of you. You just love it.
You
love the
her. Fans of it. Fans of it. We could not get enough of her. Get enough of her? We hardly even know her.
August, Osage County. Did you guys catch this one?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so whereas that movie we just talked about had both nominations for leading actor and supporting actor, this movie also has nominations, and only 2 for this movie, if I'm not mistaken, which is actress in a supporting role, which is, of course, going to Julia Roberts, and actress in a leading role, which is going to Meryl Streep. No surprise there. Mm-hmm. So, did you guys feel the same way about these performances as the performances from Dallas Buyers Club?
I watched this movie really intently. I was nervous to watch it because the play won the Pulitzer, and I don't know if you guys know about the story of the play, but it was made by a company of actors that had worked together for years, the Steppenwolf, right? And then, they're just this Chicago actors are really sort of in it to win it kind of ensemble players. So it's kind of the best ensemble players from a city of ensemble player actors. They make this 3-hour-long play, and you don't get to cut in the play, right? Like, you just have to live at the dinner table with all these people, and it's just this, and then it goes to Broadway, and it just was this huge success story. But it's very much theater with a capital T. So I was kind of scared to watch it in the movie version, because I just don't think that it can achieve what theater can, and in some respects I think that's 100% true, but the performances in this were so exciting that I thought that was beautiful. And Julia fucking Roberts, who I thought was just like, whatever, like, she's the money casting, everybody else is so spectacular, I would cook Margot Martindale's dinner, I like her so much. Julia Roberts did a fantastic job. She was fantastic. I couldn't, I don't know what you guys think, but I couldn't believe how heavy she brought it. She was so hard and so cold, and she only made that puckered duck face once. And I just was like...
It's so hard not to do the duck bill. It really is.
For her, it seems nigh on impossible, but she was wonderful. And they just all, I don't know, I was enamored with the performances. I don't think it's the world's greatest movie. And Streep, I thought, got a little outshone by some of the other actors in the camp.
I did agree that Julia Roberts was incredibly strong. I thought Meryl Streep was also good. I also am, I'm a big Justified fan, so Margot Martindale is and Americans. I like Justified and The Americans, so I'm a big Margot Martindale fan. But
she's amazing.
I did not like this movie. Now, I was going to ask you if you'd seen the play, because I have not seen the play. Tom, I don't know about you.
I have not seen the play.
I just hated this movie. And the thing I didn't like about it was that it felt to me, and I compared it to this on Twitter, but the movie felt to me like tragedy porn, like in the same way that Hostel, like the Hostel movies are like torture porn.
Yeah.
That's what this felt like to me. It felt like a movie like that. And that to me is worse. That's scarier. This type of family gets together and secrets come out of the box that you can't put back in. Mm-hmm. You know, like the kind of secrets that can break a family apart. And there's not just one, and there's not just two, and honestly, there isn't even just three. There's like 17. And it's like, how can one family have this? You know what I mean? It almost felt like, if I can compare it to Precious, you know what I mean? Like that story, you also feel like, you're like, oh my God, can this girl catch a break already? Like, how many problems is she going to have to deal with in one life? And that's what it felt like with this movie. That aspect of it, I did not love it.
Yeah, I hear you with that. I think that's the thing about taking the theater out of the story is those kinds of relationships they make so much sense in a space where you're alive with the actors, and there's no, you watch it rise and fall, and it's the music of that kind of, it's, the Greeks, right? But
exactly.
When you can't do that and all you have is a movie, you have to focus on these plot points, and that's not really what the experience should be about, right? It shouldn't be about...
That's one thing. I definitely thought this suffered from not being on a stage.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, for sure.
But the performances, I have to say, were uniformly strong. I even liked, honestly, in a little performance, this was the second little performance that he's in a movie that it was, Benedict Cumberbatch. He had a tiny role in this, as he did
Mr. Prolific himself.
Yeah, as he did in 12 Years a Slave, but I thought he really made the most of it in this one. I didn't think he did really 12 Years a Slave, but I thought he was really good in that small part. But heartbreaking. Come on already with this family. Cut these kids a break already. It was too much for me. But
yeah, this one kind of hit close to home for me. I saw, like, a lot of similarities between my own mother and Streep's character.
Hopefully she's not listening to In the Can.
No, I mean, clearly my mother is not addicted to pills. First, let me make that very clear. But the wig she had on made her look astonishingly and the glasses she was wearing, it just came in all at the same time at me. As well as the same setting, which is kind of, in the plains, and it's out in the middle of nowhere. And then maybe that's also kind of what builds the environment that Ygal was kind of referring to. There's nowhere to go. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There's nowhere to, you can walk out the door, but what does that solve?
Yeah.
That kind of...
It was just so dark to me. That's the thing. That's why to me, this is much darker than the story of like kids getting tortured to death in like a hostel in Czechoslovakia. That to me is like, ugh, that sounds unpleasant. But this is just like, I'm like, don't leave, like Julia Roberts. She's old and she's got cancer.
Elena, what you need to know though is that Ygal is famously neurotic and sensitive to, like, if you put him in a room full of a dramatic family, breaking down on itself, he would rather shoot himself than spend 5 minutes in that environment.
Conflict, a little confrontation shy.
Woo doggies. Yeah, it's funny because like when I watch a movie with my dad, for instance, my dad is a very tough guy. I mean, served in the army. He's not squeamish. Yet when he sees blood in a movie, he like has to get up and walk away from the screen. He's like, oh my God, it's getting real. That guy just got shot, and he has to like walk away.
For me, I can't watch a movie with sad dogs in it. If there's a dog in it that's sad, I can't
Marley
watch
and
it.
Me. Uh-oh.
Sad dog rolls right off my back. It was a chainsaw massacre. But when you have a family at the dinner table and they're all leaving the mother, and the mother has cancer, and the brother and the sister, and I'm like, oh my God, for the love of God, you people.
I wonder.
It was too much for me.
They should do a study as to like, because I come from a very dramatic family, big surprise, and I there is something kind of cathartic about watching it, and I wonder if, depending on what your family situation was like, or what your comfort level with those types of people are like, if that affects the way that you enjoy these kinds of emotional pornographic movies, emotional porn, emo porn.
I'm in the same boat, and I loved it, and Ygal hates it. So
see, maybe that's what
it must.
We need to do a psychological paper on this.
That's interesting. But I thought, you know what, I would also come in, and I will compare it to a movie from last year that was an incredibly popular movie that I just thought was terrible, was Beasts of the Southern Wild. Was a movie that I just hated. I found it to be so emotionally manipulative. I was just like, oh, go fuck yourself already with this little kid and like all the things she has to overcome. I'm like, get out of here already. Yeah. But that's what I felt like with this movie.
That's so cool.
I recognize that it was well made. That's the thing. I don't want to be like dense, like, oh, I can't tell that they're, the acting was really strong and it wasn't bad. It wasn't lazy or schlocky or anything. It was too much.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting about one really quick little trivia bite, and since we already talked about Killer Joe, Tracy Letts, who is the author of the play and won the Pulitzer Prize, he also did the screenplays for the movies Bug and Killer Joe, both of which were his plays.
Yeah.
That's interesting because those were both, Bug and Killer Joe, were both directed by William Friedkin, who's one of my favorite directors. And we actually talked about Bug with Mickey Keating the other day. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because that sort of makes me like this a lot more and sort of want to see this as more of a straight up black, comedy or like a horror film. I think that's part of what made it sort of deceptively, I don't even know the word, it was so light, you know what I mean? The movie didn't it was sort of a family comedy. The stakes never approached like murder or anything. So it didn't feel that dark, but then, of course, the family drama was so over the top. And now that you put it in that frame, I'm like, it's interesting. I see it as being as violent emotionally as Killer Joe was.
Mm-hmm. I didn't think it was particularly humorous. I mean, that it's described as a dark comedy. And maybe the play maybe is, and that's kind of something you all and I were talking about. Did you guys laugh out loud? Did you guys smirk? I found maybe one or two parts of the movie humorous, but at no point what I could describe as a comedy. It seemed almost entirely dramatic to me.
Yeah, I remember the trailer was like, spend a holiday with your family, and then they like made it seem like this kind of like Meet the Fockers kind of thing, and I was like,
it made it seem like Home for the Holidays. Yeah. Home for the Holidays is a great movie. That's the thing. That's an example of this movie, but just not so fucking dark. But
it wasn't, yeah.
But wait, what were you going to say earlier, Elena, about Martin Scorsese?
Oh, it just made me think that Scorsese said that the most violent film he ever made was Age of Innocence. And I love the idea of somebody who's making stories that are really violent, who then takes something that is like you said, doesn't have any murders in it, and it becomes sort of the most emotionally difficult thing you've ever to watch. Like, you'd rather watch Bug where everybody's peeling each other's skin off than...
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's, and it's so violent to watch these people do these things to each other in Edwardian New York, if that makes sense. I think that's so cool that to turn that ability to present violence inside. It's just, I think that's a really great part of culture. It's so cool. and to correct him, I don't care how emotional shit got in Age of Innocence. Gangs of New York is his most violent film ever, okay? That movie was fucked up, but I really enjoyed it. Same star.
Allow me to introduce the cruel mistress that is the clock to this conversation. Shot clock. Let's wrap up with one final question. It's the same question I asked you guys on Dallas Buyers Club. Do you think that either of these actresses are going to take home the award? Who is Streep up against? Well,
Meryl Streep has some stiff competition, let me tell you.
She's up against Cate Blanchett for Blue Jasmine, Sandra Bullock for Gravity, Judi Dench for Philomena, and Amy Adams for American Hustle.
You gotta give
I think Cate Blanchett may be her roughest competition, but you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if Streep takes it home. I really wouldn't.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Meryl Streep take it on. We still haven't seen. We're going to see Philomena next week, but no. Amy Adams, I thought was really good, but I don't think she's really got a legitimate chance. Sandra Bullock was strong. Yeah, I don't think she really deserves it, to be honest.
Well, it didn't stop her before, so.
But Cate Blanchett, honestly, I do. I think Meryl Streep is my favorite in this category right now. I think she has a good shot.
She's so good at Meryl. I thought this was a little over the top for her, and I would drink her bathwater. I think she's spectacular, but she's so good in this movie at the non-lines, like breathing before a line, or like opening and closing a pill bottle when she's talking, or like the wind-up, all the stuff that the movie people don't do anymore. They just stop and they hit their mark and they turn their head and they say the line, which is one of the reasons that I think Julia Roberts often gives not fluid performances. Like, I would watch this whole movie just to see Meryl Streep get ready to say something. Or the way she leans into Margot Martindale and they joke and they laugh and she doesn't finish the line because she's too busy laughing with Margot Martindale. Like, that is like... it's just a treasure to be able to watch that. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. So what do you think about Julia Roberts' chances against June Squibb for Nebraska, Jennifer Lawrence for American Hustle, Sally Hawkins in Blue Jasmine, and Lupita Nyong'o in 12 Years a Slave?
I would either give it to Lupita or Julia. Unbelievable. But I totally would. I mean, she did a really good job in this. And I went in not expecting anything. And she did not expecting anything good. And she did a really good job.
She did. I'm really excited to see Nebraska. I've heard amazing things about June Squibb in Nebraska, but I think I would give it to Lupita Nyong'o or Sally Hawkins, and I think Lupita Nyong'o takes it for me too. What about you, Tom?
I'm right there with Elena. I would put it between the two, between Lupita and Julia. It's really could go either way. I feel like Julia might have the edge with the experience, and prior noms and things like that. And since Lupita is so new to the scene, it's not unheard of that a newcomer would win a supporting role like this, but I don't know. I think I might give just the razor's edge to Julia just by a little bit.
Cutie and the Boxer, which was directed and also shot by Zach Heinzerling. And what did you think about this, Elena?
I went in cold. It was, I think, the first movie I've seen this year that I saw completely cold. And I thought it was interesting. It was neat to learn about these people. But I felt as a documentary, it was a little light.
That's interesting.
Not light in terms of lighthearted, but light in terms of content.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that synopsis. I felt the exact same way. I keep reading these reviews of this movie where people are absolutely gushing about this.
Really?
Like, oh, not only is it interesting, but it's great. It's put together completely well, and it's completely balanced, and blah, 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 blah. I was like, yeah, but they're stretching out very little content over a very long span of time. And there's a lot of really interesting things in the movie. And for our listeners who have absolutely no idea what this movie's about, it basically focuses on this 40-year-long marriage of these two, Japanese expat artist, Ushio Shinohara and his wife Noriko. And it's all about their interaction living together. And what I thought was kind of the most interesting part of the movie was when they begin to try to one-up each other in the eyes of the art world. And I thought that kind of conflict was my favorite part of the movie. What about you, Ygal?
Okay, so let me gather my thoughts here. I definitely liked it. It was a very enjoyable film. I agreed with Elena that it was a little light on content. I honestly thought this would have been wonderful as about 15-minute short documentary film. Yeah. It was definitely beautifully shot, and the story's interesting, and there's something fascinating about this relationship they have, where Ushio is this drunk braggart, and he's kind of, head in the clouds, and often not very nice to her, and she's fiercely independent, but stands by him this whole time, but she's also feels very stifled by him. And, they captured a lot of moments. There were moments from it, which is my favorite part of any documentary, where you're just you can feel the chills that the filmmakers had when they captured it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like when Alex, their son, comes over and is wasted. You know what I mean? And he's drunk and then tries to drink more and the mom's trying to stop him. It's like moments like that are just, it's a gift when they're captured on film. So it had moments like that. I loved that. I thought the whole look of the film was really charming. But I did also sort of feel... I'm a little surprised it was nominated for Best Documentary.
And Stories We Tell was not. Like, did you guys see?
Stories We Tell was a really good one. I'll tell you, I thought How to Make Money Selling Drugs was a stellar documentary that really deserved recognition. I thought Mea Culpa was another one that I could have seen, although that one may have technically been released in late 2012. But I thought this one was a little bit light. I definitely think, even if it were heavier on content, it doesn't even approach Act of Killing. Did you have, by any chance, get a chance to see the Act of Killing?
Yeah, hands down. It's a
winner.
hard stopper.
Right.
Yeah, it's beyond.
I mean, there's no way any other movie can just touch that in the documentary category.
Or maybe any category, honestly.
That's what I said. I've been advocating that movie should have been nominated in the feature film category. In my opinion, it was the best movie of the year.
Let's see all of the nominees first before we make that determination, though, I think. Because we still have a couple more to watch, don't we?
We do. As an artist, you are also like them, an artist. I mean, you're a writer, not a painter, but as an artist, what did you think about this concept that, in a sense, she sort of put art ahead of her own life and really the life of her son? And I thought that was really interesting because she lays that bare. She's sort of like, I stayed with him even though he was just a drunk. Mm-hmm. And the kid, Alex, is clearly a drunk now because he grew up, and she even says, because he grew up around all these people who were wasted all the time.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting that they sort of unapologetically are laying themselves bare like that. What did you think about that sort of portrayal of an artist? What did you think that said about what it takes to be a great artist?
Well, that's the thing. I think that the one major piece of content heavy content in the documentary was what it's like to be a member of an art scene who usually doesn't get a documentary made about them, he's not Jasper Johns, he's not Andy Warhol, he's not, Gerhard Richter or whatever. He's living in New York City and making art, but he's living in this kind of weird Swiss Family Robinson loft, and they're just having to make ends meet, and he's going to Japan with duffel bags full of sculptures, and it's about sticking to your principles and living for your art and following your dreams and all this bougie bullshit that people always say on Facebook. But this is what happens when you follow your dreams and you live for your art, or you support a person who does this. There's often this deep, resounding dissatisfaction with being alive, which I thought...
Shit gets real. What can he say? It gets real.
They have that old footage of him, drinking and sort of talking about that he's living by these major principles, and it makes him a bad father. It makes her a complicit wife and a bad artist. So that's a bummer for her. Not that she's a bad artist, but an unsuccessful artist. And then whenever that child comes on stage, the grown man is just, it's heartbreaking. It's like
one of the. I think that Ygal's question is exactly the right question to ask, which is, what does the film say about, getting over the hump as a famous artist? My wife watched this film with me, and she's an art history professor, and she was giving me all kinds of great context that I wasn't even thinking of. One of my favorite parts of the film was when the representative from the Guggenheim came to their studio and was looking to try to buy one of his works, and it was, if you noticed, their agent was there with them. And in one of the most, I thought, drastically uncomfortable parts of the movie, you could clearly tell how hard this agent was hawking Ushio's work, and even trying to contextualize him versus Jackson Pollock, if you guys caught that. And also, and my wife brought up, hey, I can see what he's doing there, because in many ways, Noriko's relationship with Ushio actually mirrors Pollock's relationship with his
Krasner,
Lee Krasner, right? And in both cases, the male artist basically, couldn't take care of himself in a very physiological way, and the wife artist was, her art and her own name was marginalized because she spent so much time just taking care of the male artist. So it was, I thought that comparison was very interesting, and just to see how hard this guy was trying to work for him to get a piece of art into the Guggenheim, that's it right there. He can't speak for himself. He has to let this kind of schlocky, kind of geeky art agent try to make these, pontificating comparisons, all to try to get this guy's art into this art house. And I thought I was just like, that's it. That's the mountain. Can you get over the hump? You can't even talk to the people.
Then didn't it sort of feel like she kind of betrayed him a little bit? She goes over and sort of like, yeah, he was drunk when he promised this painting to him. I was like, wow. That was wildly unnecessary.
Oh, and then of course they're like, oh well, we can't get you the one painting you want because it was promised to someone else. The agent jumps right in and says, oh, that won't be a problem. We'll get it back. We'll get that. No. You'll get it. We'll get it from him. I don't care what it's going to take. So yeah, I thought that one little glimpse was just a very little revealing. Great snapshot of explaining what the art world is like for some of these struggling artists, and I would characterize them as struggling.
So now let me ask the $100 question. Where does this rank for you guys in the best documentary nominees?
It's not the winner.
Clearly not. I think we
now.
already agreed. Active Killing is so far ahead of the pack here that there's no chance.
Yeah.
What did you think about? Did you see, Tom? I know you said you saw The Square.
I saw The Square and Dirty Wars, both of which I would put above Cutie and the Boxer in this category.
And what about you, Elena?
I have seen neither of those, but I thought Stories We Tell was a thicker and more hefty documentary than Cutie and the Boxer.
Interesting. Yeah, I did too. I was a little bit surprised to see this in the nominee pool. I definitely thought there were some more interesting and some better documentaries out there this year.
Oh, 20 Feet from Stardom is pretty badass. It can't take Active Killing, but isn't it nominated, 20 Feet from Stardom?
It is,
yes.
Indeed. I have not seen that yet. I'm excited to. We are going to see it in the coming weeks. I thought what was interesting, one of the lightweight supposed snubs was the quote-unquote snubbing of Blackfish. What did you guys think? Did you guys see Blackfish?
I did after, yeah.
I did. We talked about it on the show.
Yes. What about you, Elena? Did you see it?
I did. And it was hard to watch. That was my August Osage County. It's but really fascinating and interesting and well structured, and I don't understand why it wasn't nominated. I don't understand.
Well, see, I actually do. It's interesting. I thought as a structured. It was very convincing in a lot of ways. My wife is a veterinary student, and she had some, no pun intended, some bones to pick with this movie. And it was interesting. I think the movie did a lot of things that were sort of misleading, and it preyed a lot on a lot of unscientific things. Which I thought was interesting. I don't know if you ever saw the movie The Cove, which was a lot like Blackfish.
Oh my god, yeah.
Which a lot of people were scared it was like The Cove, and I don't think it was quite as hard to watch as The Cove, but close. But one thing The Cove pointed out was that people were long ago fooled by the dolphin's smile. That people thought because of the shape of the dolphin's mouth, it looked like a smile that dolphins were happy. And of course, that's just the way their faces are shaped, and they're not happy. They're, when you've got them in a tank, they're really miserable. They're just smart. That's what I thought Blackfish was. It was like the reverse of that. They made this strong case based on, well, look how small the tank is. Wouldn't you be miserable? And it was very unscientific in its the lengths it would go to paint the lives of these whales as horrible. Now, that's not to say they aren't horrible, but I'm just saying I didn't think the movie did a particularly compelling job of using science to make that point. But it was definitely a well-crafted documentary. I was surprised it didn't get a nomination, but I'm actually glad it didn't. I don't think it deserved one.
You're really turning me around on this here.
Yeah,
I think it deserved one more than Cutie and the Boxer. I'll say that. It's much.
Interesting. But Cutie and the Boxer was still a very interesting film. I certainly, by no stretch of the imagination, did I not like it. It was good. It was just did not approach the level of Oscar for me.
And to wrap up this category, I'll just point out to all our listeners that 4 of the 5 nominees for documentary feature are streaming on Netflix right now. So if you have an opportunity, The Square, Dirty Wars, Cutie and the Boxer, and The Act of Killing are all available to watch. So especially go see The Act of Killing and all of them.
We're gonna get to it again before we get back to the Oscars. But as I said when we talked about it previously, I think it was the best film of the year flat out, not just documentary. It was just the best movie of the year, so I really think it deserves to win documentary.
Amen.
Despicable Me 2. So, I think there's a lot to talk about. Now, you wanted to backload this. Why did you want to push this so far back? Because you have some inflammatory things to say?
No, I don't. Because I wanted to talk about it for two reasons. It's got two nominees. I want to point out it's got a second nomination for the song Happy by Pharrell Williams. Here's my problem with Despicable Me 2. I liked it. Don't get me wrong. It was a fine animated film. It's movies like Despicable Me 2 that make me sort of wonder, do we really need this category anymore? I don't know if these animated films, there's only one film in the bunch here, although we haven't seen Ernest and Celestine yet. We're going to see that before we comment on the whole category. But, only the Hayao Miyazaki's The Wind Rises even approaches a film that should be in the regular category. So these other ones, to me, I'm like The Croods and Despicable Me 2 and Frozen. I mean, I just don't know why we're talking about these movies at Oscar time. I mean, I get it. If you really think these are the best feature-length animated films of the year, then I don't know if we need this category. I mean, I thought Frozen was, I mean, as I said on the show, I got like 15 minutes into Frozen before I was like, I just want to turn this off. This is stupid.
Frozen.
And Despicable Me 2, while charming, was, it really wasn't anything special, I didn't think. What did you guys think about it?
I think that something that may undermine this particular category is that, for the last couple of years, it's basically been dominated by movies, mostly made for children.
But also dominated by Pixar.
Yeah.
And their movies for children are, as we well know, movies for everybody.
Right. And, I think to some extent, Despicable Me 2 is a movie for everybody, to a certain extent. But I had a couple problems with Despicable Me 2. I mean, if it's becoming more of just a technical issue, like who can put out the most technically amazing animated feature film, Despicable Me 2 really impressed me with its attention to detail. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the voice acting I thought it was fantastic.
Top notch.
There were a couple things that I didn't quite like about it. One of the things is, and I get it's a kids movie, but when you're filling the filling, if they have like 2 seconds to fill and they need to transition, they're making somebody gyrate their crotch. Did anyone catch this? I mean, the gyration of the ass and crotch, I'm like, would this movie be as good or better if they came up with something to put in the movie that wasn't Gru or another character gyrating their crotch in someone's face?
These are the kind of observations you tune into in the can for. This is what we bring to you. Tom has been paying attention to the groins of every animated character on his screen since The Little Mermaid.
And my other, criticism may be, pretty low of a criticism, but do you really need to, and this may be going a little bit too far into PC land, but do you really need to show Gru assaulting a group full of women doing Tai Chi? I don't know if you really need that in the movie. I don't know. I just thought
it was, the movie, it was funny, it was charming. Like I said, it's got some parts, but it's just,
there were some great parts.
Weak. I thought the whole thing was it was a little tired. It didn't excite me. I don't even know why. I mean, what's a movie like this even do? It's a sequel. It's a not particularly necessary sequel. And interestingly, look, I mean, if this movie got nominated, did you not think Monsters University was as good as this? I thought it was.
No, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair to say.
And Monsters University was also more or less unexciting. I mean, it was good, but it wasn't. Let's calm it down. It wasn't. Maybe here's what I'm proposing. Maybe instead of having 5 nominees, I mean, they went to 10 on Best Picture because we have enough good movies. Maybe go to 3 on animated movies. Maybe we want to cut out the Despicable Me 2s of the world from being nominated for this category. It's just it didn't do enough for me to warrant a look. I am looking forward to Ernest and Celestine. I've heard wonderful things about it, but this category is it's like women's softball in the Olympics. Pixar was like the United States women's softball team, and they dominated for so long that the whole event was just removed from the Olympics because they're like, we really need to see you come and win this category. But interestingly, here in a year when Pixar does not have anything strong, we get this nomination of Also Rans, and not interested.
I think I hear you. I mean, it's funny because this year I feel like we actually have a lot of feature-length live-action movies to talk about, but there have been years in the past decade where I thought the best picture of the year was an animated film. Can I think?
Yeah, I thought Triplets of Belleville was one of those that could have been Best Picture nominee for me.
And whatever what got Best Picture the year that WALL-E didn't get Best Picture, I mean, that was a really interesting change to the way that we looked at 21st century cinema. It was a nod to the past. It was much more so than The Artist was in 2012. So I don't know. But, the thing with Despicable Me, I've seen it twice. I really liked watching it. But, and it's totally got my vote for Best Song. But, I think it suffered from sequel disease, and I think sequel disease is even worse when it's a children's movie, because little kids are so interested in repeating, and merchandising is very interested in repetition. So
they're the most susceptible. The whole movie was about the minions and about the littlest girl screaming, because those are the cutest things. Those are the moments people remember from the trailer of the first movie.
And if you remember, the original Despicable Me was really quiet. Do you remember that? And it didn't cut, it flashed back to his childhood, but it was just this kind of lonely, plodding guy, and it was this kind of lonely, quiet movie, and there was a lot of, glowering and staring, and that was, I loved Despicable Me 1, and all he wanted to do was steal the moon, which is so funny. It's like Strindberg almost, And so the sort of, the pace and the heart of the original Despicable Me, I think, got kind of bulldozed by the little things that people responded to so much. And of course, the jokes when it's like they say in theater, you ask for the joke, you don't ask for the laugh. You say, if you're asking for a glass of water and you do a pratfall and everybody laughs, you've got to still ask for the glass of water. You can't just ask for people to laugh at you, right? And I feel like all of the Despicable Me Minions things that we loved in one were just, instead of just being organically created, they were just like, oh, the kids are going to be doing this on the playground, fart gun, I'm like, whatever.
It was just, it didn't do it for me.
I have to say, though, with one exception, the vocal performances in that movie were spectacular. Steve Carell is
really impressive. Really impressive.
So quotable and really strange and really good. He walkenizes a lot of stuff, emphasizes the weirdest part of the sentence. Really well done, I thought.
And just really, for a hater like me who didn't really enjoy the whole thing, I'm normally sort of, not that high on Steve Carell. I found myself all right, Steve Carell, you got me here. This is pretty funny. You are a funny guy. I'm going to give it to you on this one, but unfortunately the movie as a whole not going to do it for me.
I thought that
El Macho forever.
El Macho. Yeah, that's a little. That whole thing just seemed a little strange. I thought we were kind of.
It felt forced. I didn't care.
Or aren't we kind of past the guy that was the Latino villain runs a Mexican restaurant, and the key to his secret lair is La Cucaracha. I felt like maybe we were. Haven't we moved on from that? Those assumptions.
You mean the subtly racist implications of this film? Yes,
there were many. The Washington Redskins logo is a sign of respect, okay? That is a known fact. So is the Cleveland Indians logo, Chief Waters. So.
You realize they just discontinued using Chief Waters,
yeah.
right?
Oh,
this
well,
week.
all right.
Happy birthday. Yes.
Interesting. So there you go.
So now it's just Despicable Me. It's the only...
Breaking.
It's just Washington Redskins and Despicable Me that are left.
Nothing else is racist in this world.
Nothing. Exactly. This is the post-racial America that we were promised. So we're here.
Well, yeah.
I think that wraps up Despicable Me quite nicely in a hard
best
stop.
Song, though. Totally has my vote for best song.
You think it does? I thought, if I'm being honest, I don't even remember the song. It was so forgettable, the whole movie.
Oh, that was one of the best parts.
What part was it?
Rolling down the street and picking flowers, and he drum circles with the guys, and then he goes and does Tai Chi.
It's a commercial now.
And then he goes and...
A commercial for some kind of magical robot speaker or something. It's really good. Oh. It's really good.
Nine Donka.
It's got a line.
Yeah.
Nine Donka.
What's
There's
the line?
A line in it that's like, clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. And that's a great way of explaining sort of first day of spring, put the top down convertible happiness, right? That's a great line.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Between this song, the Moon song from Her, which was just, talk about despicable. That was just, I fucking hated that song. It was the least favorite part of the whole movie. and Let It Go from Frozen. Yeah. And then, of course, the one song, we didn't actually talk about this, but now is a perfect chance to talk about it because we're talking about a nominee. You understand, the one song that was nominated was denominated. Did you see that?
Yes, I wanted to bring that up this week.
Nominees. What was the name of the movie? It was called Alone Yet Not Alone is the name of the movie. And it had its nominee for Best Song rescinded because the guy who wrote the song is like an Academy member and his ties run deep, and the movie had not been released in any theaters in the United States. So somebody was like, wait a second, how did this song get enough votes to be nominated if the guy in the Academy didn't just tell all his friends to vote for his song?
In a movie which no one saw.
No one saw, which no one says is that good, although that really shouldn't affect the music, but still. Anyway, so it got its nomination rescinded. So there's only 4 nominees. 3 of them are from animated movies that I can only, or no, 2 of them are from animated movies. One of them is from a movie that was great, but the song can just at best be described as awful. And the 5th one is from Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom, which we haven't walked yet. I don't know if you've had a chance to see her yet,
Bono,
but the Moon song, when you hear it's written by Karen O from the AAL, and when you see Joaquin Phoenix's mustache playing this little ukulele while Scarlett Johansson does her throaty singing over it, sometimes I wish movies would mesh at the right time, and I wanted Animal House to come walking through and John Belushi to just rip the ukulele out of his hands and smash it on the wall. Really small, like a miniature John Belushi.
I saw her and I saw that song, and I would rename that song Despicable Twee if I could.
That's a very appropriate
It was terrible.
nickname.
And Let It Go, the song from Frozen, I just can't deal with Idina Menzel's voice. I don't understand why the new Broadway belt is so adenoidal, but I think that's probably for another podcast. Maybe not like adenoidal singing. But I don't know.
You had us and then you lost us. Yeah. I did have my adenoids removed once, so I can relate on that front only. But other than that, if you're talking about the tonal qualities of Broadway singers, you are indeed on the wrong podcast.
Well, like in Broadway now, they're always like, and it's like, that's not warm. That's strange. That's not singing. That's not singing. And everyone loves her. Like everyone.
It sort of sounded like a Kanye sample.
Yes, it sounds like the Shaka Khan sped up version.
Kanye sample. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, boo. I really want to convert you guys to happy, but I can't do it today. It's just not going to happen. This is going to be over, and you're not going to be.
Oh, you don't need to convert me. I'm down.
Tom, my boy. Good.
I'm convinced.
All right, but with that,
I'm with you.
Good.
Don't listen to this curmudgeon over here.
Now that you guys are BFFs, I'm going to rain on the parade and just and put the stop clock in effect. Unfortunately, we have exhausted our time with you today, Elena, but it was a pleasure, and we would love to have you back sometime.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the show, we do like to give our guests a chance to plug anything you're working on that you want to talk about, maybe your next book you want to talk a little bit about, or any readings you have coming up, anything you want to let the listeners know about?
I'm writing readings. I'm reading in Oregon and in Indiana. No, yeah, in Oregon and Indiana, in Washington, and in Michigan in the next few months. And I have a website, elenapassarello.com, and you can find all those dates there.
All right.
And if you wanted to submit some extra great screams, your favorite screams to her, you can also do that on Twitter at Elena Vox, correct?
Yeah, that's right, Elena Vox. I love playing on Twitter. So come and tell me how much you love that song "Happy," so that we can convince Ygal that it's.
There are not enough Twitter followers in the world to convince me, unfortunately.
Ygal, clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Don't you ever feel like a room without a roof, Ygal?
No.
Not since he got married.
I occasionally feel like a room with a cage that you crawl into when you're feeling bad, but that's it. No, nothing like a room without a roof. It's actually the opposite. It's a room with 2 roofs.
Well, I guess that'll make you feel safe for a tornado.
But thank you very much again for coming on the show.
Yeah,
and
thanks
we will
so
talk
much.
to you
Thanks,
soon.
bye y'all.
All right. That was, as I predicted, a barn burner of an interview. Elena was really fun. She was very gracious to see the movies, to put in the work. Actually, it sounded like she's seen more than we have. So we're trying to see everything in time for our Oscars, in time for the show. We're rounding down all the Oscars every week. We got to talk about 4 more this week: Despicable Me 2, Cutie and the Boxer, Dallas Buyers Club, and August Osage County. And we'll be seeing more. So definitely come back next week for another In the Can. Tom, where can they find us if they're looking for us?
Oh, all kinds of different places. You can, of course, always get in contact with us a number of different ways. You can email us, inthecanpodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up on Twitter, @inthecanpodcast. You can download us at inthecanpodcast.libsyn, libsyn.com. You can also get us on iTunes, full streaming. It's the same thing it is every week. You know where to get us. Just continue to get us, and if you could find the time out of your busy schedule to leave us some feedback or review on iTunes, that would make Elena Passarello extremely happy, so you don't want to disappoint her.
Yeah, oh yeah, you don't want to get on her bad side. I've heard her scream, and let me tell you, it shatters glass and hearts, so...
I'm surprised she doesn't do more voiceover work. One thing that we need to talk to her about next time we get her on.
Absolutely.
I guess you want me to put this thing in the can now, right?
Well, I don't want to pressure you into putting it in the can, but if you could, that'd be terrific.
Well, I'll put it in the can. It's February 1st, 2014, and we're putting this one in the can. Thanks for coming with us, guys. Oh!